Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents When Your Adult Child Breaks Your Heart, Coping with Mental Illness, Substance Abuse, and the Problems That Tear Families Apart. By Joel Young, M.D., and Christine Adamek. Narrated by Rich Miller. Introduction. Most of the time, the struggles of adult children with antisocial personalities, mental illness, or substance abuse fall to their parents and family. The rest of society, wrestling to get by every day with their own concerns, is oblivious to this human drama. Once in a while, these problems stand out in sharp relief, as happened on a winter's morning in Newtown, Connecticut in 2012. Although we will never be certain what was in the mind of Adam Lanza before he murdered the children and teachers at Sandy Hook Elementary, it became apparent that he was mentally ill. The nation united in grief, but divided on solutions. Some people mobilized to ban or limit gun sales, while others focused on the issues of healthcare accessibility for the mentally ill. Everyone involved in the national conversation became intrigued about Adam's relationship with his mother, the caretaker who spent most of her waking moments with him and who was rewarded with a gunshot wound to the head as she slept. This book focuses on the parents of adult children with serious issues. Some of these children become violent, although most are not homicidal. Others dispense their anger, depression, and rage on themselves and spend time teetering on the suicidal brink. Still others harm their own children, because their judgment is impaired by mental illness or substances such as alcohol, illegal drugs, or misused prescription drugs. Behind each of these scenes are devastated parents, always laboring about how best to help and uncertain about the coming chaos. When Your Adult Child Breaks Your Heart is not just a self-help book for parents who are unhappy with their relationships with their adult children. There are a million ways to be disappointed. You may be unhappy that your child did not get through school and has settled on a mediocre job. You might bemoan that he gave up too easily on his athletic career. She might have married someone outside your faith, or you might disapprove of how your grandchildren are being raised. These all can be distressing problems, but they have been discussed elsewhere and are not the focus of this volume. Many of the available books dedicated to the adult-child-parent relationship are written for adult children who are caring for their elderly parents and who worry about their parents' health and well-being. We reverse the equation. When Your Adult Child Breaks Your Heart provides information and advice for parents whose adult children are pushing them to the limits. In this approach, it is the parents of the adult children who are in need of information. The economic recession of the last few years deeply altered the natural order. The shortage of entry-level jobs and cheap housing forced many adult children to return home. Population researcher Joan R. Kahn identifies this trend in a recent study of shifting economic power between 1960 and 2010. Older Americans are in a stronger financial position than previous senior generations, but the financial strain on younger people is great. She notes, "We find that younger adults have become more financially dependent on their parents, and that while older adults have become more financially independent of their adult children, they nevertheless co-reside with, live with, their needy adult children." The researchers found other differences in today's boomerangers. Kahn used census data to demonstrate that even a college education did not immunize a child from returning home. For example, in 1960, of the more than 76,000 adult children living with a parent, only 8.4% had a college degree or higher. By 1990, this percentage increased to 16.9%, and by 2010, the number of college graduates living with their parents rose to 22.8%, a rate nearly 3 times higher than was observed during the Eisenhower administration. Needless to say, the likelihood of boomeranging increases when an adult child suffers from mental illness or substance abuse, or engages in antisocial behaviors or criminal activities. This book is written for parents whose adult children are actively causing major problems for themselves, their parents, and others. When listening to parents in a therapy office or surveying them online, we learned that there are no limits to the number of ways your children can hurt you. We heard stories about 30-year-old sons passing out drunk in the local bar, and daughters with graduate degrees who regularly shoplift from local stores. Too many parents recount stories of their adult children selling drugs to anyone with money so that they can buy drugs for themselves. A few parents related instances of their adult children neglecting or physically harming their own young children. We endeavor to understand these inexplicable behaviors and determine that the only answers rest at the nexus between evil behavior and mental illness. Many of the chapters use case studies and current research to explore this relationship further. It is clear that parents of troubled adult children give up substantial portions of their time, thought, and money to try to help their offspring, often with little to show for their efforts. We hope the book can serve as a resource to help you on this lonely journey. The first chapters examine the meaning of parental responsibility and the physiological impact of this abiding commitment. We raise the question of whether you can only be as happy as your least happy child and leave the issue hotly debated but still unresolved. You do not need to live with your adult child to worry about him. The psychological effects of coping with your adult child's problems are profound and range from denial to anger and self-blame. The stress can cause changes in appetite and mood. Too often, parents blame themselves for the behavior of their adult children, as if they were forever responsible for a child in his 30s or 40s. Countering the self-blame misperception is one of our primary missions. Parents need to limit the negative psychological impact in order to help themselves and their families. When you are needlessly overwhelmed and consumed with guilt, it is hard to wipe the kitchen counter, let alone tame the beast of your child's mental illness or substance abuse disorder. Parents need to be strong and well to withstand the barrage that comes with the struggle. Chapter 3 explores the challenge of living under the same roof with your adult child. It concentrates on exasperating situations, like watching your child sleep all day and stay up all night. Some parents endure intermittent threats of violence or come to realize that their adult child is stealing or opening the family home to menacing strangers. Chapter 4 covers the horrific experience of parents whose loved ones abuse their own children. Our criminal justice system comes down hard on violence against children, as it should, and parents of perpetrators have to endure the burden that their child hurt another human being. They also have to adjust to the humiliation of criminal prosecution and the rules that come with incarceration. In jail, adult children are exposed, perhaps yet again, to a lawless culture that values drugs and money over honest work. The friendships an adult forges in prison rarely translate productively after his sentence has been served. Chapter 5 covers issues that are involved when your adult child is accused of or convicted of crimes. The central truth of our book is that mental illness and substance abuse rest at the core of most problematic behavior. Chapters 6 and 7 define these diagnosable conditions, providing full descriptions of substance use disorders and psychiatric conditions like anxiety disorders, mood disorders, and psychotic disorders. Specific attention is given to ADHD and common personality disorders. Identification and treatment of these underlying conditions is the most efficient way to assist your troubled child. Suicide is a major risk for substance abusers and the mentally ill. Chapter 8 offers information on the complex behavior of suicide thoughts, attempts, and completions, and outlines ways that parents can help their at-risk children. We follow the worst possible scenario when a child dies by his own hands, and how parents carry on after this most brutal act. Chapter 9 discusses the importance of caring for your own physical and emotional health. Parents often develop deep anxiety and depression necessitating professional treatment, and we offer guidelines for when to seek help. Chapter 10 explores the enormous stress a troubled adult child places on your relationship with your spouse and other adult children. Chapter 11 outlines methods to help your child with personal problem solving. Chapter 12 covers the wrenching situation when you have no choice other than estranging yourself from your child. This is not a fluffy self-help book that will preach to you that all is wonderful and all you need to do is to count your blessings and smile a lot. That wouldn't be realistic or fair. The issues covered are the tough ones, including substance abuse, mental illness, child abuse, criminal behavior, and suicide. Parents of seriously problematic adult children need this overview, and we hope they benefit from our carefully chosen words and advice. How to use this book. This book is divided into 3 major parts, with chapters in each part. You may wish to listen to each chapter in order until you finish the book, or you may wish to skip ahead to the material that seems the most compelling for you. Part 1 covers learning to identify and challenge some of your common reactions and mistaken beliefs and ideas. It also includes a chapter on dealing with your problematic adult child when he or she lives with you. We recommend you listen to this chapter even if your adult child does not live with you, because it includes many valuable tips for dealing with anger and aggression. The chapters in Part 2 offer specific examples of problematic behavior, such as the adult child with a substance abuse issue or mental illness who mistreats his children. Other chapters cover adult children who commit crimes, issues of substance abuse, psychiatric diagnoses that may be the key cause of behavioral problems, and suicidal behaviors that may occur in an adult child. Each chapter discusses ways that you may be able to help your adult children, as well as situations in which you likely need to back off. In some cases, you may even need to take action against your adult child, which is particularly hard. For example, if your daughter is abusing alcohol and leaving your 2-year-old grandson alone or with disreputable people, you will need to make tough decisions. Certainly, your first action is to protect your grandchild. Then what? Simply hope for her to stop drinking? You may also need to call the Child Protective Services authorities to report the neglect. This will force an investigation, which might result in the removal of the child from your daughter's home. This is not an easy action to take for any parent of an adult child. This book is not about easy answers, but about facing the tough realities emanating from your adult child's behavior and managing them as best as you can, without sacrificing yourself in the process. Part 3 covers ways to care for yourself while your adult child is exhibiting problematic behavior. In some cases, your distress over the child's problematic behavior may have propelled you into a state of clinical depression. The best way of caring for your family is by caring for yourself first. One definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing repeatedly, while each time expecting a different result. Yet this is what many parents of problematic adult children do. They give them money, sometimes a lot of money. They internalize the adult child's verbal abuse, and they spend too much time agonizing over the adult child's troubles. This book offers suggestions on how to stop these behaviors. Also in Part 3 are methods to resolve your concerns with your adult child in a realistic way, including talking about the limitations of the help you can and will provide. Parents of adult children who abuse drugs, mistreat family members, and cheat and lie may have to make the painful decision to walk away from their child until he decides to get help or to change his ways. Sometimes the best decision for a parent is simply to withdraw, and we offer criteria on how to know if that is the best decision available to you. This book is based on the latest research and interspersed with many case studies. We have seen many bleak situations improve, but we discourage the destructive kind of hope that is based on magical thinking, that someday the bad behavior of the adult child will cease, and the person you really want him to be will emerge from the swampy fog to happily rejoin everyday society. It can happen, and sometimes does, but such spontaneous occurrences are unlikely. At the end, getting from there to here requires parents to possess finesse and discipline and the humility to recognize that these traits are dwarfed in importance if your child is not ready to make the necessary changes. Note: at the beginning of many chapters, we provide a direct quotation from an unidentified parent of an adult child with serious issues. These quotations were derived from individuals who responded to our survey questionnaire and from actual patients. We took appropriate license to alter the details to protect privacy. Some chapters begin with or later offer case study information, and again we protected the identity of the individuals. Part 1. Identifying the problems. Part 1 describes important issues, such as your role as a parent when your children are grown and how responsible you are, or are not, for them. It also covers your emotional reactions when your adult child experiences difficult issues. Finally, this part discusses problems that may come up when your adult child lives with you and offers active coping suggestions. Chapter 1. Understanding the severe problems adult children can cause. My son is now 28 years old, but the serious problems and the abuse started in his teenage years. On many occasions, he has been very physically abusive to me. At different times, he has pinned me to the floor by my neck, swung a skateboard right at my head, and twisted my arm behind my back so hard that I thought he would dislocate it. Then he started attacking his brother, but he was big enough to defend himself, and his brother fought back. Doctors have diagnosed my son with depression and borderline personality disorder, and he also has a problem with drugs. When Adam Lanza opened fire and killed 20 children and 6 adults at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, the massacre shattered the lives of countless families and wounded the entire nation. Thankfully, tragedies of this magnitude are rare in American life, but the incident at Newtown did allow the national conversation to explore the relationship of mental illness and violence and the burden of raising a child with severe mental health problems. Behind nearly every adult who is mentally ill, or who becomes addicted to drugs or alcohol, or who neglects or abuses their children, or who commits a serious crime, there is a suffering parent. This parent may initially react to the news of his or her adult child's behavior with horror, anger, and a natural desire to rectify the situation. These immediate reactions are then rapidly followed by major emotional doubts and fears, such as, what did I do wrong when he was a child to make him act this way now? Was it something I said or did? Or was it something that I failed to do years ago? Is this really somehow all my fault? Had Nancy Lanza been spared by her son Adam, she would undoubtedly have suffered self-recriminations and wondered where she went wrong. Certainly one major mistake that she did make was in maintaining firearms at her home. No parent of a mentally ill child should ever provide access to guns. For many parents, helping their child is an all-consuming task. They open their pocketbooks, empty their IRAs, and let their adult children move back home. These parents put their lives on hold, vacations, retirement, hopes, and dreams, in order to guide their children away from yet another disaster. They devote astonishing efforts to one overriding mission, to help their adult child. Yet in most cases, only the adult children can make the major decisions, whether to take their psychiatric medicines, engage in meaningful therapy, get a job, attend Alcoholics Anonymous, or take other actions to solve their problems. Parents for your whole life? Parents of adult children with serious problems will frequently risk their own physical, emotional, and financial health in extreme attempts to resolve the problems that are caused by their adult children's issues. For most parents, there is no statute of limitations on helping your child, and instead, their impulse is to respond to their child's needs whether that child is 10 or 30. I have to help my daughter, they may tell themselves. She really needs me now. Or, my son is in trouble, and no one else will help him like me. I must come to the rescue. Pop psychology has a demeaning name for parents and spouses of the mentally ill: enablers. Put another way, these are individuals who unknowingly perpetuate the existing problems of the adult child through their own behavior. When used accurately, the term enablers refers to a specific population, such as parents who continue to supply alcohol to their son with liver cirrhosis caused by drinking. But when loosely used, the term has come to imply that families are responsible for their child's mental illness, and that they somehow encourage anxiety, depression, and substance misuse. This perverse logic holds that families control the on-off switch of their child's behaviors. A Mother's Plea. Shortly after Newtown, a woman named Liza Long wrote an essay for an online site that soon went viral. Titled, "I Am Adam Lanza's Mother," it begged for a robust discussion on mental illness. In it, Long described her daily routine with her 13-year-old mentally ill son. She described how his sweet sensibility was replaced unpredictably by intense temper tantrums. With each passing day, she saw him become stronger and more fearless. She knew that soon she would no longer be able to contain him and protect her other children from his impulsive outbursts. Liza Long both loved and feared her child, and she felt alone in the struggle. Long was praised by supporters, but vilified by others for outing her son's mental illness and exposing him to potential embarrassment. Others argued that parents alone are responsible for their child's behavior, and stated their view that her son's mild autism spectrum disorder, formerly known as Asperger's syndrome, and ADHD were not legitimate illnesses. They judged Long to be an inadequate mother. In response, many pointed out that if she had written about a child with cancer or some other non-stigmatized disease, she would have drawn universal sympathy. Long's essay and the heated debate it spawned underscored that in the second decade of this century, mental illness may no longer be in the closet, but it is still not well understood. Liza Long's essay was courageous and motivated by an interest in opening a dialogue over the difficulties that parents face with their mentally ill children. At the core of this conversation are the facts. Most mentally ill people do not harm or murder innocent people. Many live among us and lead quiet and productive lives far from the headlines of cable news and the internet. Yet we cannot minimize other truths. The severely mentally ill are overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Psychiatric issues do contribute to many sensationalistic stories. Mental illness often starts in childhood and persists into adulthood, and is associated with undereducation, underemployment, and family strife. Parents of adult children are often left to cope with the daily struggles on their own. Long's essay argues that the effects of mental illness on the family are too risky for American society to ignore. The sooner we acknowledge this, the faster we can respond to the great need. If you are listening to this book because your child is breaking your heart, take a step back to reflect. Do you remember what awful thing you did to your child to make him exhibit bad behavior as an adult? Are you in any way, physically, emotionally, or financially, benefiting from your child's illness? We doubt the answer is yes. Chances are you did nothing to harm your children, and instead you tried as hard as you could to help them. In the aftermath of a publicized tragedy or in the conversations of daily life, it is a common reflex of media as well as the general public to blame parents for their child's behavior. This underlying current of disapproval, particularly when it is shared by friends and family, adds to the heavy burden that these parents are already facing. Yet in opposition to the all-out sprint to demonize Nancy Lanza for her youngest son's actions is the fact that the Lanza's older son is a successful accountant and a well-respected member of his community. Unless they themselves are psychotic, parents do not choose one child to do well and the other to fail. They do not enable their child to commit destruction. Rather, they earnestly raise them as best they can. Being labeled an enabler is usually the least of a parent's problems. Most families of troubled adult children face constant anxiety as a result of their loved one's unpredictable and uncontrollable behavior. These parents are psychologically traumatized by their previous encounters with the police or courts, and when sensing new problems, their anxiety can cascade into panic and depression. When trouble comes again, they mobilize all their resources, not just to protect their children, but also to maintain their own emotional health. The toll of repeated trauma and anxiety is incalculable. Children affect their parents for life. Your children are yours from the day they are born to the day you die. Your impact on them lingers after you are gone. Entire developmental psychology books explore parents' influence on their young. But what is left out of most books, what most parents already know, is that the reverse is true as well. Children affect their parents. In a recent study published in 2006 in the Journal of Marriage and the Family, Emily A. Greenfield and Nadine F. Marks queried the parents about their adult children's overall functioning. The researchers tallied emotional, financial, and substance abuse problems, as well as the adult children's employment and marital status. They found that the greater number of problems that their adult children had experienced, the lower was the parents' positive affect, happiness. Problems of adult children also led to a lower level of parental self-acceptance and to greater family relationship strain. Other scholars have made inroads into long unchallenged theories about parents and their children. Anne-Marie Ambert's findings in her book The Effect of Children on Parents disrupted the established order of family systems theory, which assumed that the impact could only be top-down, the parents' effects on their children. Ambert concluded that the traditional top-down model has misled large numbers of parents and professionals into believing that parents largely control their children. Thus, when children actively misbehave in public, the generally accepted belief is that their parents must have failed them in some way, that they must be bad parents. Many parents internalize this notion as well, often unfairly. So if the parent's impact on their children is finite, what causes things to go wrong? To be fair, Ambert acknowledged that some parents are ineffective or worse. No one can deny that children abandoned by their fathers or raised without physical nurturing are at a disadvantage compared to their peers. Such factors are clearly responsible for some children's problematic behavior. But Ambert also observed that social groups, peer groups, and others can also powerfully impact a child's well-being and his transformation into adulthood. External impacts on psychological development. Your child is exposed to endless situations and conflicts as he journeys through childhood and into adolescence and then adulthood, and many of these experiences ultimately impact whom he becomes. Once a child leaves the realm of the parental home, whether it be to early daycare at the age of 6 weeks or to kindergarten at age 5, he is constantly bombarded with the behaviors of others, to which he must respond or withdraw. For example, if natural male aggression in little boys is discouraged by the family, the child will temper his inclinations or risk isolation from most female caregivers and teachers. But if aggression is overly valued in his outside world, as in the world of street gangs, then that aggression will be ratcheted up in a direct response to what the peer group expects. Teachers, pediatricians, and parents must be astute to pick up on warning signs of these external influences. Consider the role of bullying by one's peers. Bullying can begin in the earliest grades, and it often goes undetected. To be bullied means that every day the child faces shame. Recent understanding of bullying links it to the victim acting out, and even to teenage suicide. The impact of a lifetime of bullying persists into adulthood, and the separation of time and distance from the experience is only partially healing. Failure in school will also have an impact on the child into adulthood. Not uncommonly, undiagnosed ADHD or a learning disability can account for a child's struggles. All too frequently, these conditions are missed and proper treatment is not given. For the child, school becomes an exercise in futility and begins a path through life with a negative and distorted self-perception. As with bullying, the humiliation lasts a lifetime. Other social factors impact the developing mind. For example, if as a parent you consistently stressed the virtue of honesty to your children, but they later learn that they must cheat in order to survive at school, they may, despite presumably deeply learned moral values, succumb to the lure. Survival and success become more valued traits than being good. While we cannot break down the impact that each of these factors has on how our children turn out, it is clear that direct parenting is not the total story. This is why we chose to write this book. We want to encourage parents to avoid taking responsibility for all their adult child's missteps, and stop attributing a child's problems to some mysterious error that was made during her childhood. When things go awry, it is natural to blame someone, and unfortunately parents, particularly mothers, have historically been the target. It's time to move away from this idea. If you can't think what terrible thing you did to doom your adult child, then you probably didn't do any terrible thing at all. It is more accurate to blame their behavior on mental illness and addiction or medical disorders that are outside your control. This perspective, supported by the bulk of contemporary research, advances the conclusion that parents have limited control over their children. Sometimes bad things happen to the ones we love the most, and we just don't know why. Much of our book examines the link between mental illness and substance abuse and the consequent problems of adult children. We describe the common psychiatric disorders affecting adult children and attempt to get a handle on the available medications and therapies. We never lose sight that the medical management of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?